Okay, so here we go. So first and foremost, I want to welcome everyone to the I don't know what this is, to the Zoom meeting. This is very exciting, and I see that we have a few participants here. As those who are maybe unfamiliar, you do have an option on the bottom of the page there to do chat. So I'm going to start off with just a little bit of a question so we can get things cracking and lacking. I want to welcome Rabbi Barnett there. Welcome to the show. And here we go. So I'm going to start off with the question. And it's not a rhetorical one. It's an answer I really want. But I don't want you to answer out loud because then people can't think. So I want you to answer in a way in the chat. And in the bottom, it says you can go to everyone. You could write just to me. If you end up making a mistake, that's also okay. Here we go. So the question is as follows. I guess we'll start off with an oldie but a goodie. You try to imagine the following scenario, that you have a father and a son. And I'm spicing up an old one. So if you know it, don't be that guy. A father and a son, they decide to take a little trip to Italy. And they go to they're driving around in the beautiful scenery. And they come across a bar. And this bar is located on the edge of a cliff. They call it the Edge of the Cliff Bar. And as they're at this bar, the father, is smart enough to have his son to be the designated driver. And he gets a little tipsy, the father, and he says, all right, it's time to go home. And he says to his son, all right, son, it's time for you to go ahead and you're going to have to drive because I'm a little bit too tipsy. His son goes, but Dad, I'm only 8 years old. He says, don't worry about it, kid. Just grab the wheel, 10 and 2, 9 and 1, 3 and 12. Just do what you got to do, and we're going to get us out of here. He's like, what do I do? He's like, just step on the gas. Just hold it still. He's like, okay, fine. So he starts holding it still and stepping on the gas. He's like, what do I do now? He's like, just hold still. Now, if you've ever been to Italy or seen any pictures along the coastline, the way the road goes is a nice little curve. So when he says to him, just go straight, that doesn't end too well. They drive straight up the cliff, and they plunge down 300 feet until the car explodes, implodes. The father is killed on impact, and the son
we gotta get done. Steve's gonna come soon, huh?
Well, you're talking to me, so you gotta mute yourself. And the son is thrown 300 feet. But he survives. So what ends up happening? Medevac come, they take him to the hospital, and they're going to try to save him. They start working on him, and finally the head surgeon walks in, and the head surgeon looks at the kid, puts on the gloves, looks at the kid and says, I can't operate on this boy. He's my son. How is it possible? Father killed an impact, surgeon walks in, gloves, I can't operate on this boy. He's my son. How is it possible? If you know the answer, write it. Write it to me now in the Zoom group chat. Let's see if anyone figured this out yet, how to use this chat. For those just joining us, father and a son, bad car accident. Dina, you wrote to everyone. Okay, that's fine. Don't worry about it. For those who have not yet figured out what it is, this is a very old one. I'm hoping you get it. And that, no problem. And that is that who is the doctor? The doctor is the mother. This is an oldie but a goodie. For those who didn't get it, shame on you. For those who did get it, you probably heard it a long time ago. I can tell you the different answers that I get, though, when I ask this question in a class setting, and I go and ask people, so how did it happen? What happened? They say, well, maybe there were two dads, or maybe it was a father, like a priest, or maybe it was someone else. How many people end up saying, well, it was the mother. The doctor was the mother. Okay, so fine. Number one. Let's go to number two. Number two is another one. This one is a little less well known. And to get it, when you write in the Zoom chat, write not to everyone, but just write to me for this one. That son survives. He grows up. And when he grows up, he becomes, pretty wealthy. And he decides he's going to spend his money on some pretty crazy stuff. And he lives life in the fast lane. He decides to buy himself a brand new car. What kind of car? He gets himself a Mercedes Maybach. For those unfamiliar with the car, guess you're not in my pay grade. But the Mercedes Maybach is about $350,000, quite an expensive car. And you can custom tailor it, and it's a pretty awesome car. So goes ahead, and he's, again, living life in the fast lane, decides to take it out for a spin. Bit of a daredevil. He got ripped off, though. You see, that is because his headlights were actually broken. So he decided to go ahead and take it out even though they were broken. And he's driving 100 miles an hour down the road with all of his headlights broken. And not only his headlights broken, but as he's driving, there are no streetlights. No streetlights on one of these country roads. And it was the time of the month, it was the beginning or the end of the month, there was no moon. There was no moon. So we have headlights broken, no streetlights, no moon. A kid jumps in front of his car and he slams on his brakes and he just missed him. How did he see him? And it was not one of these like fancy technologies of the car. Write your answers, put them in now. If nobody answers, I'm assuming nobody knows the answer. And, okay, good. Thank you for the private answer. We had one answer in so far. Anybody else? Whenever you're ready. No pressure. Ooh, we got one. We got one. We got two answers. And it could be one of you got it. Come on, people. 100 miles an hour down the road. Headlights broken. No streetlights. No moon. Boy jumps in front of the car. Slams on his brakes and just misses him. How did he see him? Oh, good. We got two of them. For those who have not yet answered, I should tell you, and that is I'm going to give a little shout out to Miriam and Stacy. It was the middle of the day. Oh, Reverend Burnett, you're in as well. It was the middle of the daytime. Now, what happened for those who didn't get the answer, who answered other things, which I won't respond to so that I don't embarrass anyone. But that is, well, when I start by saying that the headlights are broken, what comes to mind automatically? Automatically, the headlights are broken. People start to think, well, it was dark. And then I say, and there were no streetlights at, oh my, it was darker. And then I go further and I say that, hey, you know what, it was no moon, it was the darkest. Now what happens is our minds start getting pushed into this direction. Now listen, all y'all out there in cyberspace, if we'd be in person, this would be a bit easier to be able to work face to face, but we got to work with what we got over here. Understand that many of us live our lives in the way of these riddles. And what I mean by that is that we basically have certain concepts, certain ideas that we hear that put us in a direction in life. They put us in a direction and we start getting closed off into a box. We get closed off into a certain way of thinking. And many times what happens is then we just live our lives based off the parameters that we were given, right? So I say, the father was killed in impact. And all of a sudden we start to think, oh, father killed in impact. Oh, I don't know who could be the doctor. I say that it was the guy who jumped in front of his car where there's no headlights or whatever. Oh, it was dark. It was darker. It was the darkest. And then we start to live our lives based off certain rules that are created. Now, who creates those rules? The unfortunate reality is sometimes people create them for us, but many times we create the rules for ourselves. We create certain rules. Those who are participating, I'm going to try to keep you, bring you back into the game and participate. If you even want to unmute it and try to answer the next question, put yourself on video, put your volume up. I'm also okay with that for this next question over here. It is a bit of a trick question, but how many people are there in the world? Question mark. Hit it. How many people are there in the world today? Anyone? How many people in the world? Just doesn't even have to be a private answer. This can be out to everyone, or you can do it private if you'd like. Does nobody know how many people are in the world? Okay, we got one who said 7 billion. Any other answers? I'll give you a hint. It is a trick question. How many people are in the world? 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All of them. That's correct, Dina. Very good. Miriam says always changing. That is accurate. But I'm going to say anywhere between 7 to 10 people. I think 7 to 10 people. Not billion, not million, not hundreds. I mean people. Now, what do I mean when I say between 7 and 10 people? I mean between 7 and 10 types of people, categories, groups. Try to think about it for a second. How many different types of things are there? And think about all the people that you met. Have you ever met someone? And when you meet them, right away you say, oh, this guy, he reminds me of or this girl, she reminds me of, or whatever it may be. And what happens is we're reminded, and then we start looking at them a certain way. In other words, there's 7 to 10 different categories or groups of people. It's not a real number. Make up the number you want, but you understand, maybe you could say different per different country or culture, but there are not that many people we fit into, and we fall into what we call a box. Oh, very good, Aranda. Excellent. But what I mean by the concept of how many people, it means, unfortunately, once you have a person who's a certain way, then it becomes negligible. You're right, though. You are accurate. There are more people, but meaning to say categories. We have 7 to 10 different types of people out there. I went to visit one of my yeshivas not long ago, and this is a yeshiva that I studied in where there's like 100 kids there. And I walked in, and one of my rabbis is still working there, and I went to ask him, I said, so where am I? He goes, what do you mean, where are you? I said, where am I? You've been here long enough. I mean, yeah, it's true that there are a lot of kids here, but, there's pretty much all the same. There's the funny one. There's the one that thinks they're funny. There's the good-looking one, the one that thinks they're good-looking. There's the rich one, the one that thinks they're rich. So where am I? Which one am I? He points to some kid. I'm like, that guy, he's such a loser. He goes, I don't want to say anything about you, but we fit into categories. And unfortunately, we end up then very much living our lives according to those categories. I would venture to say the following statement, and if you disagree at any time, again, either write it publicly if you'd like, or even shut off your volume, turn on your volume. I don't know what you're allowed to do now. I don't know who's running this thing. Turn on your volume and actually say it. Come straight out against it. I would venture to say 50% of the decisions that we've ever made in our lives, we never made at all. And let me say that differently. At least 50% of the decisions that we've ever made in our lives, we never made at all. Anybody disagree with that comment? At least 50% of the decisions we've ever made, we ever made at all. Now, what do I mean when I say this concept? Right. Okay. So good. So Dina put in privately that's probably more, and I agree. I agree that it's totally more. And like Rhonda says, I would venture to say it's a lot more than 50. I'm just trying to be nice here. I would say it's 90% of the decisions that we ever made in our lives, we never made at all. Someone would ask me, well, what's the other 10%? And there's 2 answers to that. That depends if there's husbands or not. If there's men in the room, the other 10% is your wife made the decisions. And if there's no men in the room, then you're right. I would say 100% of the decisions. Now, what do I mean by that? Of course we make decisions. We make decisions all the time. But there are relevant decisions, and there are decisions that we've broken out of and we've actually made completely and totally. And then there are, I don't want to call them irrelevant, but decisions that we really didn't have full, I guess I would call it, choice in the matter. I'm not getting into free choice, another discussion entirely, but meaning to say that 50% of the decisions, the way we walk, the way we talk, the way we act, the way we behave, very simple. If you've ever met anyone and then you meet their parents and then you go, oh, so now you understand what I mean. We go ahead and we go and we follow our upbringing. It's a reality, something which is very hard to get around. It's very hard to get around that, which is scary to think about. How many decisions have we actually made? And what do we actually know? Did we really make decisions? So I believe you're doing a series, I hope, on the idea of 7 traits. The first of anything, before you can go ahead and I want to tell you something. Putting aside Judaism, what I'm going to share with you right now, or the ideas we're talking about right now, are not just relevant to an idea of someone who wants to pursue their Judaism and get deeper into it, understand it. This is everything in life. This is in business. This is in relationships. This is between relationships between your spouses or your children or your work or yourself. And that is that before we make any decisions, we have to know how to think outside the box. Don't get caught up in this box, and then we go ahead and we have parameters, and we're stuck within that box. But to start breaking out and really making decisions. Actually, I want to share with you that there are 4 different categories that we have when we want to relate to information. Okay, I'll even write them out to you so you don't get confused, as you can see them. Number 1 is called society, but I think I just wrote that privately. So I'm going to write that to everyone now. Number 1 is what we call, how do we do this? Oh, that was just to Dina. Okay, not to everyone. Number 1 is called society. Got to make sure I spell it right now. Society. You know what? I'll say them all and then we'll break them down. This is what I like to call sif-bic. Now, what do I mean by sif-bic? So let's break down each one of them. Number 1 is society. Society is, for example, An example would be if someone, and just forgive me, but again, if anyone wants to pipe in at any time, please feel free to ask questions or interject at any time. But just for time's sake, I'm just going to speak straight because I don't know how quickly you're getting what I'm saying here. Society would mean like this. Is it uncommon to find that somebody is from a certain city, state, or country, and they are a big fan of that city, state, or country's sports team? You know, someone's from New York and they like the Knicks or the Giants or the Jets or the Islanders or the Rangers or the, I don't know, fill in the blank, what I missed, Knicks, baseball, basketball. Oh yeah, the Yankees or the Mets, right? That's called society. So society, I would say, is what, just as an example, would be something like a sports team. This is an example. And you go and you ask someone, so why do you like your sports team? And what are they going to say? There could be various different answers, and there's always exceptions. So if you're one of them, my friends, chill, I got it. But we go ahead and we say that there's exceptions to the rule, but the general rule is that most people are from a place, they like a team. Was that a choice that they made? The answer is probably not. In other words, they grew up in a place, they grew up in a society, they grew up in a country, in a place, a location where everybody likes this team, so they like them also. That's called society. After society, we have something which is called faith. Now, what does it mean when we say faith? Faith is something, and if you don't like the definitions I'm giving, so we just need a working model here. Just don't take it so intensely. I'm just working, so change the words. It's just semantics. But listen to the understanding of it like this. Faith is when you want something to be true, but you actually have no evidence that it actually is true. So I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Faith would be something like the lottery. Okay, the lottery, a person goes out and they play the lottery. Why do they play the lottery? They play the lottery because they want to win. They want it to be true. Is it actually true? Is it something that they go ahead and that statistically makes sense? Matter of fact, statistically, you're not going to win. Yes, there are people that win at times. I got it. But it's not going to be you. And if it is, then we should speak. I mean, I'd love to be your friend. But come to realize the fact that we go ahead and we're playing the lottery, it's because we want to win. We would like to win. I have faith I'm going to win, which is why most of you, if any of you play scratch-offs or something like that, you buy a $1 ticket, a $5 ticket, maybe a $10 ticket. You're not buying $100 tickets, at least not regularly, unless it's for some charity. Why not? Because you know you're going to lose. And in the $1 game, maybe I'll win. And if I don't, then I had fun trying. That's called faith. We then move on to the next level, which is called belief. Now, what would be belief? Belief is essentially when, you have evidence that something is true. You have evidence that something is true, but the evidence is what we would call inconclusive evidence. Inconclusive. So let's say, for example, I were to tell you that that you walk into a room and, or better yet, you're standing outside of a room and you see me walk out of the room, and I walk out of the room and I'm holding a bat. This is going to get a little gory. Apologies. You see me walking out with the bat. You go into the room and you see no one else there but someone on the floor, and they're no longer in the land of the living. Now, anyone who's involved in police work would know that I would be called a prime suspect. But you couldn't say that I'm the person that actually did it. That is inconclusive. You have evidence, but it's inconclusive. It's not clear that that is the case. So basically what we have is that you have a picture. You're drawing a picture that maybe this is true, but I don't know that it's true. Last but not least, and this is probably the most intense one, is what we would call knowledge. Now, this over here is a biggie. Listen very carefully about to share with you, because I'm going to share with you something which is life-altering. Life-altering. If we understand, what does it mean, knowledge? What is the definition of knowledge? Listen carefully to this idea. Knowledge is when you have enough evidence. I'm going to explain what that means in a second. I'm going to write it out. Enough evidence, I hope I spell this right, evidence that puts something into a category where it is now reasonable to say that it's true. Enough evidence that puts something into a category that it is now reasonable. It is now reasonable to say that it's true. That's a big statement right there. Because many people make a mistake when they're trying to figure something out in life. They want to know, how do I know something? How do I really understand if something is true or something is not true? What's called knowledge? And you'll have people left and right saying, well, knowledge is 100%, and you can't have 100% in something, so therefore you can't have knowledge. The classic one that comes up with is Judaism. Like, how do I know Judaism is true? If I don't know 100% that it's true, then I don't know. But the reality is that's not accurate. We use the word knowledge all the time, but do we actually know something? And I'm gonna give you an example now. This is a classic of Noach Weinberg right now. If you haven't heard the name of Noach Weinberg by now, I'm surprised. So I'm not even gonna explain it to you. But there was someone named Noach Weinberg, and he used to very often speak out the following. And I'm gonna ask all y'all out there today, and we're gonna take a look and see what you say about this. So the classic example is your parents. Is there anyone that is on this chat right now that could say that their parents are their biological parents? In other words, you were not adopted. Anyone, listen, I hope this isn't too personal, but if you're not answering, I'm not taking it as an idea that it's an answer. You don't have to answer, but is anyone here that could write and say, my parents, Somebody wrote something very funny privately to me, that they have their, I won't say who it is, but they have their mother's toes. Okay, good. So that certainly is a 100% proof. Is anyone here that their parents are their biological parents? So we have someone says most definitely. Okay, good. That's out in the open. So only one of you, I guess. Okay, interesting. I've never had a group with so many people adopted. That's fascinating. Okay, that's okay. But let's try to take a look at those whose parents are their parents. If you don't mind me asking, Miriam Leah Schwartz, straight out going at you. How do you know your parents are your parents? How do you know your parents are your parents? How do you know? How do you know? How do you know? Take it away. How do you know? Can we get this on audio? Can anyone put this on audio? Like we can actually hear you speak? How do you know your parents are your parents? I just know. That was very conclusive, and thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, do you agree that to be? Wow, for sure. We now know certainly. Does anyone know how we know that your parents are your parents?
Genes, genetics.
Genetics and genes. Okay, that is, who's speaking? Who said that?
Lauren.
Okay, Lauren, genetics. What do you mean by genetics, if you don't mind me asking?
Like DNA.
You've taken a DNA test.
I mean, I haven't personally, but if I were to.
Right, but you didn't. How do you know your parents are your parents? So Miriam writes she has pictures. I also have pictures of babies that don't belong to me. Please negate that comment. That sounds creepy. What I meant by that is just because you have a picture doesn't mean that we know it's you. How do we know your parents are your parents? I guess nobody actually knows. That's a little scary here. Now, I don't want to mess with you too much. I'm not even going to go, back. Okay, because they love us. That's nice, but my question was biological. Biological. Now, if Rhonda, what you meant by that is that, oh, wow, it's so bad. Unless they're my biological parents, there ain't no way they might be my parents. I don't know. You see, that wouldn't necessarily be a proof. You can say they're parents because they raised us, but I mean biological. How do we know they're our biological parents? Now, Lauren, I'll even throw out the concept, if you want to throw in genetics over there, if anyone's ever done a little research, then you know that even genetics aren't 100%. Okay, good. Miriam, you're getting onto a good idea. I don't know. I don't have any reason to believe otherwise. Stacy says we believe them. That's very good. Good. But if you say you believe them, then we've moved below the level of knowledge. And we don't know. So if someone goes, are those your parents? You say, well, I believe so. Well, that's a little bit disturbing for your parents, maybe. They'd be like, so they might be able to know that you're their kid, but that you could know that they're your parents, little bit challenging. I don't want this to be the next time your parents call, and you'd be like, "Hi, Mom." You'd be like, "Hi, Mom," like if that's your real name. Like I don't want to, I can mess up. Then she's going to turn to your father and go, "That's it. She knows. It's time to reveal who I really am." No, okay. So we understand the fact that your parents are your parents. How do you know? Let's take a look. So we got SIFBIC, society, faith, belief, knowledge. What's knowledge? Knowledge is when you have enough evidence that puts something into a realm where it's now reasonable to say that it's true. So let's put this all on the table. Everything you guys said. We have pictures. We have DNA. We have no one said otherwise. Right? Otherwise. I put no one together there. I don't think that's a word. No one said otherwise. We look like them. We have the fact that we have a birth certificate. And so on and so forth. In other words, we have a lot of evidence that's drawing a picture over here. When we start drawing that picture, now we say, you know what? It's reasonable to say that this is actually true. But how many things do we actually know? How many stuff do we actually get? And how many things do we just accept? It's scary. Like I said, 50% of the decisions we ever made, we never made at all. 90%, maybe even 100%. And I'll show it to you. It's scary, but I'll show it to you. Now, I'll show it to you in modern day. Okay, this is a modern day that we live in now. We know that in life we got tons of choices, right? We can make tons and tons of choices. Let's take a look and see if what I'm saying is true, though. For those who have children or want children or think about children sometimes, tell me, what is the best way to control your child? Let's say you want to control them. I'm saying if you want to have control over your child in a way that control. How do you control them without abuse? God forbid. What's the best way to control your child? Anybody have any advice over there? Best way to control your child. I guess you're waiting for me to tell you the answer because nobody has it because maybe we weren't able to control our children. What's the best way to control your child? Throw it out there. You got your chat on the bottom. Best way to control your child. Okay, frame it in a way that aligns with what they already want. Okay, good. Okay, nice. Everyone sees that one. Miriam Leah Schwartz's 9-year-old daughter is there and say, just love them. So, Mrs. Schwartz, forgive me for giving up trade secrets in front of your daughter. This is up to you if you wanted to see this. Any other answers? Explain consequence and reward. Good. Come on. Give me some more. No more? All right, get ready for it. I'm going to tell you the best way to control your kid. The best way to control your kid, and behind this door are probably my kids listening, so I'm giving up some trade secrets here. But the best way to control your kids is to give them a false sense of control. Now, what do I mean by that? Allow them to feel. Similar to like Dina mentioned about the concept of framing in a way with aligning what they want, but even what they don't want, but to make it think that way. An example, okay? So I remember when my oldest daughter, when she was about 3 years old at the time, and I came over to her and I said to her, Nava, because that's her name. I said, Nava, put on this outfit. And I hold up an outfit, whatever it is. I could even do a real live demonstration. Okay, I don't even know whose this is. I don't even know, maybe this isn't even my kids. But I go out and I hold this up and I say, Nava, put this on. Put on this outfit, right? And she says, like any good 3-year-old Israeli girl, lo. You have to have that shoulder in there. Lo, I'm not putting it on. I say, Nava, come on, put on that outfit. Lo. Okay, it's not working. So what happens? I say, that's it, put it on. And you get into a fight, and obviously nothing goes well. Until I realized one day, I'm going to show you what I did. What I did is as follows. I took 2 outfits. Whoa, this is stuck. I took 2 outfits, held up in front of her, and I say, Nava, which one do you want? Now, what did I do? I took 2 pre-parentally approved Oh, yeah? Okay. I know that the shrug is international. I thought it was just Israeli. I took 2 pre-parentally approved outfits, and I say, Nava, Yossi, mute your thing. I say, Nava, which outfit do you want? I remember the first time I did that. What happened? The very first time I did that, she went like this. And then Dino, Lido. And I said, hold on 1 second. What are you saying? I don't know what she was saying. She goes, I'm saying eeny, meeny, miny, mo in Hebrew. So I said, excuse me, I'm an immigrant. We speak English in this home, right? But what happened? How did she feel? She says, oh, I get to choose which one I want? How does that make the kid feel? It makes him feel empowered. It makes them feel like they made a choice, like they made a decision. But hold on 1 second. Did she actually make a decision? The answer is yes. But did she really have choice? The answer is no. She thinks she did, but she only had the choices that I presented before her. Now, what would happen if I put these 2 in front of her? And then I say, okay, now, but which of these 2 do you want? Right? I go, which one do you want? Here's your 2 options. You want this guy? You want this guy? Which one do you want? Which one? And then she says, you know what? I want the 3rd one, the one on the shelf. I say, excuse me. I said you get to choose anyone that you want of these 2. But if I was really intelligent, what would I do? I would set up my house in a way which the entire thing is pre-parentally approved, in a way that the only choice she had was something that I think is okay. So when I say, which one do you want? This one or this one? This one or this one? Do you want this one or this one? You know, come on, make a choice. And then she says, you know what? I want the 3rd one. I say, come on. No, really, which one? She goes, I want the 3rd one. I say, you know what? Okay, fine. You could have the 3rd one. How did she feel at that moment? I'm in charge. I made a decision. Look at me. Look how great I am. In reality, did she make a decision? Now, let's stop and think for a second. That's an example which has to do with our own particular home and our lives. Let me ask you guys a question about you. Okay, let me ask all y'all a question. Let's take an example of something we have tons of choices with, right? So maybe we have one of these guys. Some of you can recognize this. Believe it or not, this is a real live phone. As you can see on it, it says 738 because here in Israel it's 738. So what happens? You go and you start to see this phone over here. You guys have tons of choices as per which phone you could have. If you don't mind writing in, okay, we have here 17 participants. I want to see at least 10 answers. Type in for me right now, which type of phone do you own? Which phone? Put it on the everyone that you can send it out. And which type of phone do you have? Okay, we got one. We got one up there. Galaxy. iPhone. We need 8 more people. iPhone. Keep going. iPhone. Keep going. Nokia. Woo! Spicy it up. Keep going. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We got 5 answers. Come on, we need 5 more. 3 more. 3 more answers. Let's get 3 more up on the board. iPhone, Galaxy. Another iPhone on the board. 2 more. 2 more, people. What do you got? iPhone, Nokia, iPhone, Galaxy, iPhone. And last but not least, survey says for 200 points, nobody says anything. Okay, so we're going to let it slide. You see, so how many options do we actually have out there? Do you see? There's probably like 1,000 phones that you could choose from, but isn't it fascinating that really overwhelming majority of that, if whoever said this, right, Milliam in the beginning said the Galaxy, that's a Samsung. I don't know if you're familiar with the fact that Samsung and iPhone are like deadlocked in court for the last 15 years fighting over who created the technology. It is so similar one to the next that it's scary. So basically we have up there iPhone, and sprinkle it with a little Nokia. But here's the scary thing. You see, you have tons of choices of which phones you could have. But I don't have to even go on a limb right now because of the fact that you're even having this conversation, there's a good chance that you're on your phone right now. That is that you have tons of choices of which phone, but every single one of you owns a phone. In other words, what has the world done to us? The world has held up and said, okay, you have to have a phone. Now, which one do you want? Why is our only choice that we must have a phone? Maybe we don't want a phone. Now, if there's anyone in this chat here that's over 35, then you actually did have a choice at some point in your life because you didn't have one growing up. When I was a kid, we didn't have cell phones. Nobody had cell phones. So you probably, most people didn't have them, which means at one point you made a choice. But then it became a given. Now I'm having one, now we're going. Now, don't misunderstand me because there's always someone who says, oh, you're saying it's bad. Listen, like you see, I have a phone. I'm not telling you not to have a phone. I am saying don't misunderstand what's happening in our lives. That there are certain givens that we're going along with those givens as opposed to maybe challenging those givens. And that brings us to the very next point, which is huge. Who in Judaism would you say was known to be the first Jew? Who was known to be the first Jew? You could type it, you could say it, you could chat it, tweet it, bop it, boop it, whatever you got. Who's known to be the first Jew? Hit it. Okay, we got an Abraham up on the board. And that's correct for 200. Daily double. Okay, now, Abraham is known to be the first Jew, although technically speaking, he wasn't even Jewish, right? But all right, I don't want to confuse you too much, but it was before Sinai. Abraham is called to be the first Jew. Now, what is it that made Abraham special? You see, it wasn't the fact that he was the only one to believe in one God. There are plenty of people who believed in one God before Abraham, right? We had Adam and Eve. We had Shem, Avraham, Mesushalach. I mean, you go through Tanakh, through the Torah, you start to see plenty of people before Abraham that believed in one God. Then what made Abraham special? What made Abraham different? What made him different is the fact that he didn't just accept what people told him, but actually he did something very unique. Now, this is a very well-known story, and I'm sure you've heard it, but just quickly review the story. Abraham had a father by the name of Terach. I typed it out for those who want to see it. Terach. Okay, that was his father's name. We can't do the ch thing, so Terach. Terach. And Terach owned a monopoly. He had a monopoly of stores that were called Idols Are Us. Right? He rocked it. I don't know how to put the R backwards on the keyboard. Okay, but Idols Are Us. He was the one who basically was very into idolatry, multiple gods, very much believe in that. Okay, so one day, Terach says to Avram, this is the father of Avram, he says, Abe, I want you to watch the store. I'm going out for a smoke. He says, all right, you got it, Pops. I'll see you soon. And he goes out, he leaves the store. What does Avram do? Anyone know? What does he do? Type it in. What does he do? 3 seconds on the clock. 3, 2, 1. Boom. Good job. He smashes all the idols, destroys it. Good. Whoever wrote that one, he destroys it except for one. He leaves one idol unsmashed, and he puts the hammer in the hand of that idol. His father comes back after this whole, going this whole smoke, and he looks around and he's like, oh, what happened over here? And he says that everything is smashed. So he goes and his son is like, oh, Dad, you wouldn't believe it. It was World War III, even though World War I hadn't happened yet, right? It was World War previous, it was prerequisite World War, and they were fighting. And he said, well, what happened? He goes, well, one of them goes, oh, it's tough being God. The other one goes, oh, you're God? What you talking about? I'm God. The other one goes, no, I'm God. And then one goes, your mama. And then the other one goes, you better believe it, son. And then it was a brawl, and they started going crazy, and they started smashing everything until finally it came out from the end of the day that what happens? That must be God, because he's the only one that's left. And he turns to him, he's like, Abe, what are you talking about? I'm the one who went for the smoke, not you. These things can't do anything. They're sticks and stones. Okay, so then he says, really? So why do you worship them? Oh, no, he didn't. But he busted him up right in his face. Now, there's a lot more to that story and a lot we could talk about and learn about that story. But I'm not getting into anything other than the following. What made Avraham special? Not the fact that he knew that there was one God, because multiple people knew about this, but the fact that he smashed his idols. He smashed his idols. See, he challenged his upbringing. He challenged his surroundings. Now, I'm not saying everyone should go to their parents and be, as we say in Hebrew, chutzpah, or as we say in New York, chutzpah. I'm not saying that. I am saying, though, that why don't we just accept certain things and move forward with them? And it's scary. We go out and we just accept things, and then when we do that, we live our lives based off them. Now, okay, it's a good question. Somebody asked, how was Abraham the first to ask this question? How come no one else thought about it? And I can't answer the question. Maybe there's something that I'm not familiar with, but in Jewish history, we know it to be, in Jewish literature, we know Abraham to be the one that does such a thing, to break free. I think you have to ask the question differently. Not how was it that no one else asked it, right? Because again, for those who didn't see it written, someone wrote, how is Abraham the first to ask this question? How did no one else think about it? I don't think the question is, how is it that Abraham, that no one else thought about it? I think is, how did Abraham think about it? Do you know that, look this up, most people around the world live within a 10-mile radius of where they were born. Most people live within a 10-mile radius, and if it's not you, so I get it. I'm also not me. I live 6,000 miles away from where I was born. I get it. And I also moved to different states, a few states. I lived in Maryland, I lived in New York, I lived in New Jersey, and then I live here in Israel. But most people in the world don't leave 10-mile radius their entire lives, which is scary. Now, what does that mean? That means that most people are living their life in a way, where they don't challenge anything. They just accept things. That's how we live our life. I know now we have the whole fake news thing that's going on, and no one's accepting anything, but we're still accepting. We say fake news by what we don't want to be news. But other than that, we say, yeah, we accept it. So the uniqueness is not, that's how unique it is. That's how unbelievable it is. The fact that he did challenge, that he broke out. And some would say he broke on through to the other side and didn't just accept, but rather he challenged and he asked. Before anyone can even begin any sort of understanding of anything in life, we have to be able to take a step back and say, okay, what are the givens? As we say in Talmudic terminology, what's the hanacha? And who says that they are true? I'm not saying to be a contrarian. I'm not saying to fight all the time. I'm not saying... Okay, Rhonda, I got it. And some people say their family lives in Israel. You're right. Jews are very unique. We actually are unique. And I think maybe it comes from DNA from Abraham that whether we want to or not, we get moved all over the world, whether it's because we're sent into exile by people or because of the fact that we decide to move certain places. We have a homeland and people do that. But again, most people don't. Most people accept life for what it is and they just continue living a certain way. Our goal in life is not just to accept what everybody is telling us, not to be a contrarian, but to try to be honest and to break down to the bottom line. The bottom line is, okay, where are we starting from? The only way to go ahead and really move forward in life is to be independent in a way that we can go ahead and start making choices. Yeah, okay, so it's a very good point. Someone just saw, if you could see on, or that was written out over there, it says iPhone N, that they heard a medrash. A medrash is part of the oral tradition. It says that he was hidden in a cave for his formative years, and he came out and he saw the sun in the sky at an age where his mind could question things, as opposed to most children accepting what they got used in this world. And that there is a medrash that says that. There is such a teaching that says such a statement that would be the case. And if that is the case, then that means that that's a reason why he did that, why he challenged, because he was away from his surroundings that allowed him to ask the question. The point being that we, at some point in our life, have to break free from this box. We have to break free from the fact that every one of us right now, I don't care who you are, I don't care what city or state you're in, every one of you lives in a box. Okay, fine. Some of you live in an oval or in a triangle, but you're in some geometric shape. And every one of us is living in a particular box, in a particular shape. And the question is, did you choose to live in that, or did someone choose it for you? That's scary. Did you choose, or did someone choose it for you? At the end of the day, you may be in the right box, but can you appreciate the difference between choosing to be in a particular field or area or life and someone choosing it for you? When you choose it yourself, then you have an understanding of what you're doing. And unfortunately, so many people might even be living the right life, but they don't know it. And since they don't know it, they don't maximize it. That's really what it comes down to, is by challenging and asking the questions that are going on, thinking out of the box, not just accepting, not going just with your society, not just going with your faith or your belief, but working it out with knowledge. What's the evidence? What do we have here? Let me break it down and get clarity on that which I'm talking about. And once I have clarity, the way Rav Noach would call it, is 5-finger clarity. Just like I know I have 5 fingers, so too I know that the way that I'm living my life is correct. Not just because I accepted it, because actually I know that it's true. Okay, now listen, this is a lot to take in. What I want to do right now, because we're coming close to time, is I would like to mention at least one more idea, and then I want to do a quick recap of everything we did, and then end off with one last point. Now, you ask yourself, so what does that mean? Do I have to figure out everything in life that I have to have knowledge 100%? The answer is no, it's not 100%, but we have to have what's called knowledge, which is enough evidence. Yeah, but who cares? Let's say I'm wrong in a certain thing. Does it really make a difference? The answer is, for some things, it doesn't matter at all. For example, how many planets are there? So when I was a kid, there were 9 planets. Then I remember the day, the dark day, when they made Pluto into a dwarf planet, I think they called it, right? They degraded, they lowered his position from being a planet to no longer being a planet. They downgraded, that's what I was looking for. They downgraded him from being a planet. It was a very traumatic day. Pluto, out of all the characters, why not Mickey or Donald? Pluto, why? Okay, anyway, point is, at the end of the day, when they take Pluto down, does it really matter? In other words, does it change my life? Does it impact me? Am I now going to live my life a different way because of that? Yes, I might. It may be that now I'm going to get only 8 scoops of ice cream instead of 9 scoops of ice cream. No way, I'm going to live my life a certain way. That's the bottom line. It's not going to change anything. But what about this? Is there a God? Is there Torah? Is there Judaism? Is this real? Or in any other area of your life, are there things that actually make a difference? The answer is absolutely. And are the things that actually make a difference, that's where we want to get down to have knowledge and understanding and knowing what we're talking about. And not just accepting what other people are telling us, but breaking it down and having knowledge about the matter. Thinking out of the box, getting clarity in the matter, working it through by challenging our surroundings, not just accepting what people are telling us. And by the way, I want to make this clear. I don't care who you are. I don't care if you're religious. I don't care if you're secular. I'm talking to every person. If a person is a religious person, I'm saying someone who grew up religious their whole life, but they never worked it out, they never thought it through. It's the same boat of a person who lived as a secular person and never thought it through, or a Christian, or a Muslim, or pick any religion, a Buddhist, it doesn't matter. You're born a certain way, a Mets fan, a Yankees fan, it doesn't matter. I don't care if you're from Springfield, New Jersey, make no difference from me. We got to go ahead and every single person has to challenge and really figure out for themselves, become independent thinkers by breaking through, by being like Abraham, smashing the idols, not just accepting, but moving forward with an idea of actual clarity. Okay, so we have right now, my friends, we have about 6 minutes on the clock. So what I'm going to do right now is a quick recap of what we did, end off with one point to bring it home, and then maybe open it up for a few minutes of questions if there will be any. Here we go. So we started off in the beginning, the whole story of what happened that we know. I have to do this a little slower than I do in person because I don't think the computer can handle the speed that I'm going to go at right now, but here we go. And that is, number one, is understanding the fact of what happened to the father and the son. They go out to the drinking thing, and they go gets rushed to the hospital, and we say, what was that? It was the mother. And we get a little further, and we start to realize the fact of what happens when the person goes ahead and he drives his car, and his lights were off, and there was no street lights, whatever. It was the middle of the daytime. And how many people in the world between 7 and 10? I get it. I didn't say types, but types of people that are in the world. And then we got a little bit further and start to realize, what do I mean by that? 7, 10 different categories or types of people, because what happens is that we go ahead and we start to fall into these different categories. We start living our lives a certain way. We got 4 different ways in which we connect with information. We got society, faith, belief, and knowledge. SIFBIC. Society would be like your sports team. I grew up in a certain society, therefore I believe in a certain sports thing. Or I grew up in a certain society, I have a certain religion. I grew up in a certain society, I believe in God. A certain society, I don't believe in God. We're just being taken 50% of the decisions we ever made in our life. We never made it all. 90%, 100% faith. That would be the lottery. Belief, inconclusive evidence, and then knowledge. Knowledge is when you have enough evidence to put something into a realm, into a category that is now reasonable to say that this is true. How do you know your mother is your mother? How do you know your parents are your parents? Answer is you don't, or do you? Do you have enough evidence? You don't need 100%, but I have pictures. I got DNA. No one said otherwise. We look like them. We have birth certificates. You talk, you put this all together, we start to see something. How do you control your kid? If you want to control your kid, the best way to control them is to set them up in a way to make them feel like they have control, and then they'll always be with you because they'll feel empowered as if they made the decisions, when in reality, you already set up beforehand what the decisions are going to be. This one or the one on the shelf. I've already set up your world in such a way. How many of us live our lives like that? What kind of phone do you have? iPhone, Nokia. Then we got Terach and Avram. What does Avram do? He goes and he smashes his idols. How come no one else did that? Answer is, I think it's a pella. It's a wonder that even he did it. And one answer is the measures that he grew up in a place that he was able to, he was outside of that thing. But that's, my friends, what we're trying to do. Now, some things don't make a difference at all, but some things very much make a difference. And before we're going to go out and make decisions in our lives, we have to realize the fact that we have to be independent thinkers, not just accepting what people are telling us, not disregarding it, but actually breaking down in a way that we can be like Abraham. We can live our lives in a way where we don't just accept. I'm not just fighting for the sake of fighting. I'm fighting for the sake of getting truth and understanding how I'm going to live my life, not just being a sheep or just being led to the flock, to the cattle, to the sheep, whatever the phrase is, but living a life in a way where we go and we make our decisions that are real to us. And you may be, at the end of the day, you find out that the way you're living is exactly how you should be living. But if you don't go ahead and actually make that decision, then it's going to be a totally different life than if you don't do such a thing. Okay, friends, I'm going to end off with this one point, and that is to be a real leader and to be a person who's a real thinker. We need to be independent, not just accept, challenge our surroundings in a respectful manner, in a way that we could figure out which box we should be in, and then have conviction and know what we're doing, have five-finger clarity, have understanding. So only four there, and there's the fifth, five-finger clarity in a way that we know what we're doing. Okay, I'm going to open up now. I have a few minutes to any questions, comments, stories, jokes, attacks. Hit it. This is that awkward moment at the end with just silence, and I'm in a room all by myself and staring at a little black hole that seems to be a camera.
We're here listening to you. I think a lot of people are on their phones, not on laptops.
So they can put on their audio.
Yeah, so people feel free to do that.
Okay, so first we have somebody that said something very important. It can be overwhelming to start questioning everything. Can you suggest some questions, some beginning questions we should be asking ourselves? That is a fantastic point, and thank you so much for bringing that to my attention. The answer is good. First of all, understand, I'm not saying to challenge everything and just question everything. Right? You'll go nuts. You'll literally go nuts. But let's start with the following. What is our ultimate goal of what we're trying to accomplish in this world? What are we trying to do here? How's about that? Just the very beginning, the beginning step is to figure out, I'm not saying this is a small thing. I'm not saying this is a small feat, but I am saying that some people get so caught up with living their lives that they don't understand why they're doing it in the first place. To have a clear and concrete goal of what we're trying to accomplish over here, what we're doing here. Did we ever stop and think about the myriad, thousands of hundreds, millions, trillions of things that have happened that made you be here today? And what is the purpose and the goal? What are we trying to accomplish? So many people, the way that the Western world has raised many of us, and I come from, as they say, I come in peace. How? From Western world. The goal is pretty much make money. And they say, yeah, be a good person and give to society in some way if it works out with the money on the side. And I'm not saying it's everyone. Forgive me if you didn't grow up like that, but I did a little bit, right? To start questioning, like, what am I doing here? What's my goal? Because everything that we do in our life is based off our end game. The way we raise our children, the way we deal with our spouses, the way that we deal with our work, the way that we make our decisions is based off our end game, whether we realize it consciously or it's subconscious, it's on the unconscious mind. In which case I would start with just asking ourselves, what are we doing? What is the ultimate goal? I would say that would be a beginning. I would say that would be a beginning question we should ask ourselves, and then start to take a look from there. As I understand, being the fact that we're on this group chat, and that means that we are not the only ones that are involved here. There are other people that you guys are working as a team together. I think it's not a bad idea to maybe have these type of discussions in a group setting. Okay, that's one. Anything else that we got? Last question, and actually, believe it or not, I got another one of these Zoom thingamajigs. So what do we got? Anybody out there? Okay, very good. Someone who just wrote that out there. iPhone in, thank you so much. I thought it was going to be a nice, relaxing day. Well, what is it there? I think it's Sunday there. Well, I want to make you feel like I feel. There's no such thing as Sunday in Israel, all right? So feel my life, okay? It's hard. But listen, if there's no other questions out there, so I appreciate all you all coming out and listening today. And maybe someday... Okay, good. That's a good answer, right? And maybe make sure that we're doing it in such a way. Very good. If that's the goal where you're heading for. I want to show appreciation to all of you doing this, Rabbi Chaim Samson and Rabbi Simcha Barnett and Yossi Friedman and Lauren and I don't know who else is involved. And forgive me if I didn't get everyone, but thank you all for coming out today. Really, really appreciate it because, again, it could have been awkward if it was just me. If I could just give a shout out to those people that I see, Debbie and Dina, and we said Lauren and Miriam, Leah and Stacy and Zenia and Sarah, and then there's a couple of phones, and another Dina and a couple of phone numbers, so I can't really give you a shout out. But for all of you that came out here today, really, really appreciate it. And hopefully we'll see you again. I have over here, will I be doing this again? Will we know in advance? That's up to whoever's running this thing. I will probably be doing this again at some point in the future in my own life, but I don't want to pitch myself. I don't think it's the right thing to do in someone else's format. ravgav@gmail.com. Did I say that out loud? But if anybody wants to be in touch in any way, shape, or form, you're welcome to. And if there's any questions, comments, stories, jokes, attacks you feel I didn't address, you can be able to take a look at them. And the answer is yes, this was recorded. I don't know who's in charge of it. But
guys, just to fill in a little here, this was recorded. First of all, thank you, Rav Gav. It was recorded, and we'll send it out to everybody. And there will be future ones, not all with Rav Gav, but there will be there will be future parts of this series. Rabbi Barnett will be in touch with everybody with more information about that. Thank you,
okay,
Rav.
I'm signing out. I apologize. But again, if anybody wants to be in touch, I'll just write it out if anyone wants to personally. But you don't have to only ask me. You got a whole team over there. But again, my email is ravgav@gmail.com. If I didn't address anything or if I insulted anybody, apologies. I wish you have a wonderful, wonderful rest of your day, morning, afternoon, night, wherever you may be.